Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister mentioned how much had changed, and it's true. I look around this place, and when I left, there was a Liberal Prime Minister who was making excuses about breaking promises, running massive deficits, costs, crime, chaos were all out of control. And whereas today, we have a Liberal Prime Minister breaking promises, making excuses, running massive deficits with costs, crime, and chaos out of control. Mr. Speaker, when will the Prime Minister match the grand promises with the real change Canadians need?
Common Sense Loonie, that's my tune, bringing truth to the red and white moon.
Personally, I am a man.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Rex, and this is Common Sense Loonie, and wow, we've got a lot on the plate for today. Really, I mean a lot. This has been a huge few days, and trust me, I have not been napping. I've been working. But between technical difficulties and just the sheer amount of news coming out, I haven't been able to keep up. Parliament is back in session, so there's lots to talk about. We've got 3 days of question periods to cover. Let's just go through a few quick stories, then we'll move on to the main event. So, big news. Chrystia Freeland.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Chrystia Freeland.
Mr. Speaker.
Okay, I got it. Chrystia Freeland, the Liberal job swapper, has just bailed on her role as Minister of Transport and Internal Trade after a whopping 6 months on the job, hopping straight into a new position as Canada's Special Representative for Ukrainian Reconstruction.
Resigning from cabinet and taking on this new role for the reconstruction of Ukraine.
She resigned?
Yes.
I didn't hear.
The Prime Minister just put out a statement.
All right. I didn't know
Yeah.
if she had. So
What do you think her legacy is going to be?
I want to think about that a bit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's do a little flashback on her whirlwind resume. In just over a decade in politics, since 2013, Freeland's racked up at least 6 major cabinet gigs. She kicked off as Minister of International Trade from 2015 to 2017, where she fumbled NAFTA talks, bending to U.S. demands and weakening Canada's leverage. Then Foreign Affairs Minister from 2017 to 2019, cozying up to global elites, but soft-pedaling China's threats, letting Huawei scandals fester unchecked. By 2019, she's grabbed the Deputy Prime Minister, juggling it with intergovernmental affairs until 2020, when she became the Finance Minister through 2024. There, she ballooned the national debt past $1 trillion with reckless spending, ignoring fiscal hawks and spiking inflation that hammered everyday Canadians on food, fuel, and homes.
Well, yes, the big news in Ottawa today was to have been the release of the fiscal economic statement. That release was to be read in the House of Commons by Chrystia Freeland, the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister. But minutes before reporters were to head into the lockup with the fiscal economic statement, Chrystia Freeland herself announced on social media that she is not going to be the finance minister. Freeland on social media saying that the Prime Minister had asked her to take another job in cabinet after delivering this fiscal economic statement, and over the weekend and on reflections, she's decided she doesn't want any other job in cabinet, so she's out. The fiscal economic statement does likely proceed. There's going to be some spending in it. The government is going to break its promises on fiscal restraint, a promise that Freeland herself made in the budget speech last April, saying that the deficit would not get any bigger than $40 billion.
She quit that post dramatically, slamming Trudeau's gimmicks, only to resurface this past March as Transport and Internal Trade Minister under the new Carney regime. 6 months later, poof, gone again, with little to show but stalled infrastructure projects and trade barriers that frustrated provinces. Short tenures, big messes. That's Freeland's hallmark. Zero accountability, endless excuses. Good luck on the new gig. Meanwhile, in the Green Party, Elizabeth May, Canada's Green Party leader, is at it again. She said in August she'd be stepping down after the next leadership vote, but now she's begging to stay. With a party vote happening required 6 months post-election, over 40 members want her out, saying her flip-flop is confusing. May claims she's saving the cash-strapped Greens $600,000 in debt by sticking around unpaid. But let's be real, May has always been a bit wild. Remember her slurring through a 2015 speech, clearly tipsy on stage? You can actually see a clip of that in our closing credits. Or how about that 2007 Nazi climate rant? Classic May chaos. All right, folks, buckle up for the main event question period. Poilievre is back in the saddle and ready to go tete-a-tete with Prime Minister Mark Carney. This was their first session. Let's roll from the start.
My mother taught me never to be late, so please forgive me for my late arrival to this session. I had some meetings with extremely important people in East Central Alberta, Mr. Speaker, after which I was honored to be elected by the great people of Battle River Crowfoot. Yeah. Damien Kirk, who made it possible, and I thank the Prime Minister for calling a prompt by-election. I wonder if one day he might regret that decision, but in a spirit of good faith, I wonder if he agrees that our goal should be a Canada where hard work is rewarded, where food and homes are affordable, where streets are safe, where borders are solid, and where we're all united under a proud flag.
So, pretty nice and respectful entrance by Pierre. Let's see where this goes.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure I speak for all parliamentarians in welcoming the member for Battle River Crowfoot back to the House of Commons. He may notice a few things have changed since he was here last. The largest women's caucus in Canadian history.
Okay, I just had to stop it here because I love how Carney says a few things have changed. The largest women's caucus in Canadian history. Bragging about diversity doesn't really seem like much of a change.
Asked why he appointed a cabinet that's 50% women?
Because it's 2015.
All right, let's get back to it.
And a spirit of collaboration that was shown in the opening session, including in the passage of the Build Canada Act and the Projet de loi du Bloc québécois en ce qui concerne.
And the Bloc's bill in terms of protecting supply management. I agree entirely with the sentiment and objectives of the Leader of the Opposition.
Okay, we are not getting into the supply management part this episode. That's a huge topic requiring an entire episode, which I will cover soon. So, overall, a fairly civil opening from both parties. Now let's see what Poilievre has to say about the changes.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister mentioned how much had changed, and it's true. I look around this place, and when I left, there was a Liberal Prime Minister who was making excuses about breaking promises, running massive deficits, costs, crime, chaos were all out of control. And whereas today, we have a Liberal Prime Minister breaking promises, making excuses, running massive deficits with costs, crime, and chaos out of control. Mr. Speaker, when will the Prime Minister match the grand promises with the real change Canadians need?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I understand the Minister, or the Minister, promotion. Come on over. I understand the Leader of the Opposition was busy. He missed the largest tax cut for 22 million Canadians. He missed the cut on the GST for new homes. He missed eliminating all federal barriers to trade. He missed, I hope I'll have another opportunity to finish a very long list of what the Leader of Opposition did.
Ouch, that did not take long. Was Carney a little rattled when he mistakenly called Pierre the minister? We might as well get right into it. First order was the economy.
In the spirit of nonpartisanship, we are simply going to hold this Prime Minister to his own promises. He promised that he would spend less. He's already spending 8% more. He promised the budget would be in October. Now he says it will be in November, more than halfway through the fiscal year. He promised that his government would have a smaller deficit than Justin Trudeau. Instead, now we hear that it might even be double. So a trivia question. Can the Prime Minister tell us, has there ever been a Prime Minister who has successfully doubled the deficit without even introducing a budget?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
It's a trick question.
Laugh out loud. It's a trick question. By the way, if you're curious, the answer is no. There has never been a Prime Minister who has doubled the deficit without even introducing a budget.
Mr. Speaker, this government is undertaking the biggest investment in protecting Canadians in the Canadian military. Doubling our investment in the Canadian military from last year when this member last sat in the House by the end of this decade. This government, there's more.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
There's a lot more debt, is what there is, Mr. Speaker. A lot more debt than we ever imagined would be possible. This is a prime minister who said we'd have the fastest growing economy in the G7. We have the fastest shrinking economy in the G7. He said grocery prices would go down. They're going up faster than ever before. He promised to create jobs. He has the second highest unemployment in the G7. He's really reminding us all of that sign at the bar, free beer tomorrow. But you come back the next day and the beer is still not free, and tomorrow never comes. Mr. Speaker, why is it that all of this Prime Minister's promises of yesterday turn into today's disappointments?
Poilievre is on fire. I'm not sure how Carney's going to be able to handle question periods after just this short exchange. Okay, let's move on. The next item for discussion was something I'm working on for a future episode, something I'm very passionate about. It's the extremely controversial and dangerous Bill C-75, the Catch and Release Bill. It's going to take a few days for me to roll out that episode because there are so many cases of horrendous crime occurring from people that should be in prison, and they're not, because of C-75.
Mr. Speaker, violent crime is up over 55%, and more than half of Canadians don't feel safe in their own neighborhoods. This Prime Minister promised to crack down on crime, yet repeat offenders keep getting out on bail. Another broken promise, but Canadians are paying the price. Families are shattered, lives have been lost, and that's why my Jail Not Bail Act will put these criminals behind bars. So the question is simple. Will the Prime Minister support our bill, restore safe streets, or was that another broken Liberal promise?
Arp Canada of Oxford is absolutely right. Until something is done about C-75, crime is going to be a serious problem in Canada. You know, there are people out there that seem to be satisfied with the state of Canadian crime rates, but I am not one of them.
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, it was in our platform. We've got a mandate and we've promised Canadians that we are going to keep our communities safe. This fall, we're tabling legislation to make bail tougher, to make sentencing harder and stiffer on repeat violent criminals. We're going to make sure that these types of criminals stay behind bars and that everyone feels safe in their homes and on their streets.
Hear, hear.
Ruby Sahota, Secretary of State combating crime, says the right things, I guess. Or I should say she reads the right things. But we'll have to see how, after years of insanity in the justice system, the Liberals plan to fix this mess.
Prime Minister promised to fix their broken criminal justice system and did nothing all summer. Meanwhile, 7 shootings have occurred in Vaughan in less than 3 weeks. A father, Abdul Aleem Faruqi, was shot dead protecting his family. Families across Canada are terrified, and repeat violent offenders are still on our streets because of weak Liberal laws like Bill C-5 and C-75. Another Liberal broken promise, another Liberal bait and switch, because this Prime Minister is just another Liberal. When will this Prime Minister's broken promises stop?
Anna Roberts of King Vaughan is 100% right on this. There has been no action taken on reforming criminal justice. Violent crimes jumped 55% under Trudeau, and Carney promised to fix it. But at this point, nothing's been done. All right, let's move on to the next day. So this is September 16th question period. Prime Minister Mark Carney was a no-show today, probably dodging the heat. But wow, this session was a firestorm of zingers and dodge questions. Let's dive in. First up, the skyrocketing cost of food in Canada. Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative pit bull, came out swinging, hammering the Liberals on grocery prices that are burning holes in Canadians' wallets.
Now we're halfway through the fiscal year, and the Prime Minister hasn't even presented a budget, despite the fact that he managed to double the deficit. It's now twice as high as that of Trudeau. What an accomplishment. And now we have inflation at a rate that is 50 times higher. And for food, it's up 70%. There are more people relying on food banks now. The Prime Minister said that we could judge him by grocery prices. So, what's the verdict?
Poilievre's not letting up, and it's like watching a boxer pummel a punching bag that refuses to fight back. The Conservatives grilled the Liberals 15 times, 15, about food costs. And guess what? Not a single Liberal gave a straight answer. It's like they're allergic to the question. Instead, they dodge, weave, and toss out word salad about housing or tax cuts.
Mr. Speaker, he wants us to celebrate his failures, including failures that are leading to real human suffering. Let me quote the CEO of Daily Bread Food Bank, Neil Hetherington. So giving you some context, previously before the pandemic, we were at 600,000 for the year visits to the food bank. And so it took 38 years to get 1 million visits per year, and then only 1 year to get 2 million visits, another year to get 3 million. Now we are at 4 million visits. Food bank lineups are growing and growing at an accelerating rate under this Prime Minister. Does he realize the very real human consequences of his broken Liberal promises?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I'm here to announce some good news. Last night, Canada and British Columbia approved the new Silesome LNG export terminal in northern British Columbia. It's with the Nisga'a Nation. It will be the second largest private sector investment in the history of this country. The second largest in the history of this country. It will employ thousands of Canadians. We would love the Conservatives to help us build Canada.
Seriously, what does a fancy new export terminal have to do with the price of beef? Spoiler, nothing. The Liberals are tap dancing around the issue like it's a political talent show, and Poilievre's had enough. He calls them out, and it's glorious.
The question was not about re-announcing a previously approved project. It was about the cost of food. And frankly, it is insulting. We have asked 10 questions about the cost of food in the last 2 days, and not a single Liberal minister will get up and answer it. Maybe that's because the inflation rate on food is 70% above the target. Maybe it's because there are now 4 times as many visits to Toronto food banks as there were 3.5 years ago. Maybe it's because they broke their promise to stabilize food prices. Maybe it's because the Prime Minister promised that he could be judged on the price of food. Speaking of which, what's the verdict?
Hear, hear.
Oof, that one's gotta sting. Poilievre's basically saying stop gaslighting Canadians while they're starving. And here's the kicker. Is he right about Carney's big mouth? Did our PM really say he should be judged on food prices?
What does tangible progress look like for you when it comes to addressing cost of living concerns in this country? And will there be a barometer such as public mandate letters for Canadians to hold you accountable to?
Well, I think the way Canadians will hold account by their experience at the grocery store, when they're paying their electricity bill, when they or their children are looking for a place to live. So it will be their experiences how they will they will form those judgments, and then of course accountability comes at the ballot box.
Oh, Mark, that did not age well. With food inflation up 3.3% and beef spiking 33%, that promise is looking more like a political faceplant. Canadians are judging all right, and the verdict ain't pretty. Next, we shift gears to housing, or, as the Liberals call it, how to spend $13 billion and build nothing. Kyle Seaback from Dufferin Caledon absolutely dismantles Carney and Housing Minister Gregor Robertson tearing into their so-called housing plan like a wrecking ball.
$13 billion for 4,000 homes is $3.2 million per home. That's not affordable. It's all starting to make sense where this scheme was cooked up. You've got a housing minister who oversaw the doubling of rent and the doubling of housing prices when he was mayor of Vancouver. The head of this new agency came from the city of Toronto that increased the cost of building by 700%. It's almost like the interview process for these positions was, are you incompetent? Were you fired from your last job? Once again, for the sake of Canadians begging to buy a home, please tell me this isn't the plan.
Boom! Seaback's math is brutal. $13 billion for 4,000 homes? That's a jaw-dropping $3.25 million per house. Folks, you could buy a mansion in Toronto for that, or maybe a condo in Robertson's old Vancouver stomping grounds where prices doubled on his watch. Something smells fishier than a week-old cod in this deal, and Canadians are noticing.
Mr. Speaker, unlike what the members opposite are saying, we are working cooperatively, and in order to get these projects across the line, you have to work together. The Conservative recipe doesn't work. It doesn't work. That's not how you build housing. And you can't just leave it all up to the private sector, especially when it comes to affordable and social housing. This federal government is working in partnership with the provinces and municipalities and community groups to help the entire population have access to decent housing.
The Liberals keep promising tens of thousands of homes, but with housing starts down 16%, it's sounding like another empty Liberal promise. Good luck selling that one, Gregor. Now, the grand finale, the elusive 2025 budget, Canada's answer to the Holy Grail. Everyone's heard of it, but nobody can find it. Back in May, Carney's team said there'd be no spring budget, blaming a tight schedule. The backlash hit hard, so they pivoted, promising a September budget. Then, oops, make that October. And now...
Mr. Speaker, it's a great question indeed. We're going to present a great budget in this House on the 4th of November, Mr. Speaker.
November 4th. Are you kidding me? This is deja vu from last year's Liberal budget circus. I'm half expecting them to push it to December or maybe even 2026 at this rate. Anyone know a good betting site where I can wager on the next delay? Because the government's delivering only one thing on time: broken promises. And now we move on to Wednesday, which in my opinion was just nuts. First, we need a little backstory to this session. There was a parliamentary committee with budget watchdog Jason Jacques about government spending, specifically a fiscal anchor. And his response was alarming.
I guess I want to get right to some of the questions that we have based on the reports that have been released to date. Would you agree that with a clear definition of what counts as operating spending, it's impossible to evaluate whether the government is on track to meet its fiscal anchors?
I would say officially we're within the office. I don't know that the government currently has fiscal anchors, which of course causes the people that I work with a considerable degree of concern at this point. As everyone knows, the government did have fiscal anchors. The previous Minister of Finance had the fiscal anchor of ceiling of the annual deficit at 1% of GDP, along with a declining debt to GDP ratio. It's unclear where those stand. They haven't been reiterated by the current government, to the best of my knowledge. With respect to your point regarding the capital and the operating side, we haven't seen a clear definition of what would fall into capital and what would fall into operating. So at this point, it's impossible for us and for you as parliamentarians to assess the likelihood or probability of the government hitting any fiscal target.
So a fiscal anchor is like a rule or a goal that the government sets to keep its spending and borrowing under control, so it doesn't get into too much debt. Think of it like, a leash on a dog. It stops the dog, which would be government spending, from running too wild. For example, they might say we won't borrow more than a certain amount, or we'll lower the debt over time. It's a way to make sure the country's money stays safe and stable. So Carney takes to the floor and addresses this report.
I don't recognize that, Mr. Speaker. I don't recognize that characterization. I just appointed the Parliamentary Budget Officer, and this government does have fiscal anchors. This government has fiscal anchors. We are going to spend less so the country can invest more. We are going to balance the operational budget in 3 years. We are going to have a declining level of debt, and we're going to do all of that because we're building the strongest economy in the G7 for Canadian families.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
And the Prime Minister made the appointment of the Parliamentary Budget Officer temporary, so that he could hold a sword over his head and threaten him if he speaks the truth about the financial mess the Prime Minister has made. That's what you remember? You know, to a government that doesn't know how to count, there is nothing more terrifying than a man armed with a calculator. And this Prime Minister wants to silence the Parliamentary Budget Officer from telling the truth about the fiscal mess that he has created under his watch. So will he, Mr. Speaker, legalize math, make the Parliamentary Budget Officer's position permanent, and tell us how big the deficit is?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker.
With respect to consultations on making the Parliamentary Budget Officer's position permanent, I look forward to speaking to the Leader of the Opposition, le chef de bloc,
The Leader of the Bloc Québécois.
Of other parties in Parliament, so we have a consensus on that appointment. I welcome that opportunity. We will do it at this. Yes, because this is the new spirit, Mr. Speaker, the new spirit of collaboration that has.
But you see, that directly contradicts what his Parliamentary Budget Officer reported. The very officer that Carney, as he just said, appointed himself. And Poilievre is not having it.
And the Prime Minister made the appointment of the Parliamentary Budget Officer temporary, so that he could hold a sword over his head and threaten him if he speaks the truth about the financial mess the Prime Minister has made. That's what you remember? You know, to a government that doesn't know how to count, there is nothing more terrifying than a man armed with a calculator. And this Prime Minister wants to silence the Parliamentary Budget Officer from telling the truth about the fiscal mess that he has created under his watch. So will he, Mr. Speaker, legalize math, make the Parliamentary Budget Officer's position permanent, and tell us how big the deficit is?
Poilievre is absolutely correct here. The proof is in the pudding. Let's just take a quick look at how that Budget Committee meeting began. Kelly McCauley's opening statements made it clear there's been some shenanigans with the appointment of the PBO.
Now we have our very first guest today, pursuant to Standing Order 1083C. We're holding a briefing with our interim Parliamentary Budget Officer, Mr. Jason Jakes, who's been with us many, many times over the years. Congratulations on your appointment, although I think we are disappointed the government ignored the will of the committee with extending our wish to extend Mr. Giroux.
So yeah, this is what Carney has sneakily done and what Poilievre is calling him out on. The last PBO was Yves Giroux, and this guy was highly regarded for his nonpartisan work. His contract expired in July, and the Budget Office strongly advised extending his contract for his excellent work in the past. Carney said, nope, not doing that. Why? Well, if I go into speculation mode, I'd say for the very reason we're seeing now. Carney would have gotten absolutely grilled by Giroux on his current economic strategies. Carney plays what Poilievre says, and I agree, a dirty hand and appoints an interim officer. That's Jacques. He's only got a 6-month contract. So now the Prime Minister has time to find an officer that will be more partisan to the Liberals and also has the ability to hold a sword, as Pierre said, over the head of this interim one. Because Carney could have Jacques out of a job by early next year if he's not satisfied with the work. So Poilievre said the Liberals are afraid of anyone wielding a calculator and also insinuated what I just explained. And now, here's Carney.
Mr. Speaker.
With respect to consultations on making the Parliamentary Budget Officer's position permanent, I look forward to speaking to the Leader of the Opposition, le chef de bloc,
The leader of the Bloc Québécois.
Of other parties in Parliament, so we have a consensus on that appointment.
I gotta tell you, this response infuriates me on so many levels. First of all, that fake and somewhat ominous laugh at the beginning, and then the response, which was total BS. The Conservatives wanted a non-partisan officer. They wanted Yves Giroux to remain at his post, but the Liberals under Carney forced him out. Unity? My butt.
Prime Minister promised to cap spending, but is now set to double the deficit. Another broken promise, another Liberal bait and switch. Here's what the PBO, Canada's financial watchdog, said about the PM's economic record. Quote, the deficit will absolutely be higher. Quote, I don't know that the government currently has fiscal anchors. Quote, the labor market sucks. Wages are not going up. My question is this. How high will the deficit go? And what is this government's fiscal guardrail?
Hear, hear.
The Conservatives are going to go after Carney about this report again and again and again, so I won't show you all of the attacks. But I thought Kelly Block of Saskatchewan was pretty decent at nailing the Liberals to this point. Now enter François-Philippe Champagne, the Liberal Minister of Finance.
The Honourable l'Honorable Ministre des Finances.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
So happy to see that our Conservative colleagues are so eager to see the great budget we're going to present on the 4th of November. Mr. Speaker, this is good news for Canadians indeed. It's going to be a generational investment in the future of this nation, Mr. Speaker. We're going to build our country. We're going to protect our communities. We're going to empower Canadians. We're going to build the strongest economy in the G7. We're going to build like never before. We're going to build the Canada of the 21st century because you know what, Mr. Speaker? We're the true North, strong and free.
I have to be honest, I absolutely can't stand this guy. He's like a ringmaster in a circus. Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest show on earth. Blah, 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 blah. He just annoys me. And of course, he really doesn't even answer the question. He simply goes on about the greatest budget ever in November. We're going to hold him to that. Here's a tip. Don't bet on it. Okay, we move on to an allegation made against the Liberals by the Bloc Québécois. It's about the appointment of a Quebec judge who technically doesn't qualify.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, the Canadian Judges Act is clear, and I quote Section 3, only persons who have members of the bar of a province for at least 5 years may be appointed judges of a superior court of a province. However, Robert Lackey was appointed judge of the Superior Court of Quebec, and even though he's only been a member of the bar for 7 years.
Okay, first of all, I don't know if 14 misspoke or the translator screwed up. The statement said only members of the bar for at least 5 years, which is incorrect. You need to be at the bar for at least 10 years to qualify as a provincial judge. But the government appointed Judge Lackey after only 7 years. The PQ is claiming this is to push liberal views on secularism and French language. Basically, the PQ want him removed.
Honourable Minister of Justice.
That we have a different perspective. We expect the justice to make decisions independently based on the law. The rule of law in this country is a fundamental pillar of our democracy with which we may not show compromise. We must insist that we have an independent process based on recommendations by people who can assess the validity of the nominations that come before us. We appoint judges based on their quality and on their merit, not on their partisan affiliation. I hope all members will support the independence of this essential process in a democracy.
Oh boy, Sean Fraser. Anyways, he claims it's an independent process. It's supposed to be, Sean, but maybe not so much this time. The Liberal Party selected this judge via their process. The Liberal Party announced him, and the Liberal Party appointed him. Saying they had nothing to do with it would be false. Their fingerprints are all over it. So we can see already that this Liberal Party doesn't look much different than the last one, except they're far more sneaky. And that's question period, folks, where conservatives throw punches, liberals duck, and Canadians are left paying the bill. Stick around because the soap opera is just getting started. All right, that's all we've got for today's episode. Really want to say sorry about yesterday's episode where I kind of screwed up the uploading or downloading or whatever. Anyways, I had to delete the original episode and then re-upload it. So some of you may be seeing it twice. So sorry about that. These things happen. All right, that's it. I'm Rex. It's Common Sense Loonie. Stay strong, stay skeptical, and stay loony.
I'm here to cut through the haze, no disguise. Gonna open your eyes to politicians' lies. Canada's great, but led by wackos, it's true. Time for no nonsense, me and you. I'm the Common Sense Loonie, hear my call. Ditch bingo night games, we'll fix it all. Common Sense Loonie, that's my tune. Bringing truth to the red and white moon.
Personally, I am a man.